All right, once again, doing the live stream uh, shuffle here. I'm gonna give people habitualized to me going maybe live stream once a day, at least until this old 10-year decade old laptop eats it. I guess I'm at a 640 by 480 VGA resolution, and everything's all washed out. I got my heavy duty LED bar light going, and yeah, life is good in that sense. You know, it's kind of like a radio station. You can hear it good enough to where you can make out what they're trying to say, or the music's okay. Your mind will fill in the missing parts, I guess. But if you're one of those people that want a high resolution image, uh, so you can see all the catastrophe behind me, I got laundry to do still. I was out plowing my my future garden. I was out plowing it today. Not plowing it, using the rototiller type deal. I have a what's it called? A Joe. Uh, what is it called? It's something Joe. Is it Mojo? Something like, basically it's an electric tiller. Um, I'll put a link if I remember in the description what I'm trying to talk about. Like I said, I studied so hard in university, my mind doesn't properly function anymore. So I might remember what it's. Oh, Mojo. Is it Mojo? So it doesn't matter. So I was out there tilling the soil, getting a garden prepped for. I live in a state which is pretty frigid. I think I might plant the garden in May. I watch the temperatures, and as soon as it's consistently above 40 degrees, then I might plant it. But right now, it's not there yet. Um, I've been messed over a lot of times by the weather, playing. Oh yeah, we're warm enough now, and then it's not. It'll freeze and then kill all the little sprouts and things coming up. So yeah, what am I doing? Well, I got my lantern going here, kerosene lantern, and I got some Amazon basic, was it, no, Amazon 365. I guess they really sold out of these or something. It's pink salmon in a can, and I think it's from Alaska, but strangely it doesn't have the Alaskan salmon seal on it, but it does have the can. It kind of reminds me of those Edison batteries, the connectors, how it's tapered. See, it's smaller up here and wider at the bottom here, but it's upside down now. So it's kind of funny how things are, just the associations, the way your mind works. So that what do you call it? The subject I want to get across today, I think, is renewable energy, and what does that mean to people? Renewable energy. So the etymology of the word "re" means again, energy. For our purposes, it's more likely than not, it's motive, as in moving. It's electric, as in it uses electrons. According to that theory, empowers your uh, electric equipment, or it's heat. So kinetic, electric, or heat. So that comes again. So that's the way you want to look at it. You want to look at it as renewable energy. That to your mind should be, again, we have heat. Again, we have kinetic or motion, uh, mobility. Again, we have an electric zap that gets us where we need to go with our electric uh, equipment or our electronic equipment. Does that make a little more of sense? So it's like if you watch Mad Max Fury Road at the beginning, Martin Joe's like, once again, you know, we go out onto the Fury Road or something like that. I forget how it is, but it's once again. So that's renewable. That's renewable. That's once again. Once again, we have electricity. Once again, we have something moving that we can harness, just like we'd put a harness on a horse or a donkey, harness the energy to move something, provide useful work for us. Um, or once again, we have heat. You know, this lantern, which I'm using to heat up this salmon, it uses kerosene. Kerosene is a fossil fuel. What do we mean by fossil fuel? Let's break down the etymology. Fossil means um, no, for a layman's understanding, fossil would mean old uh, or legacy. Um, so then you have fuel, which means energy. So legacy energy, old energy. Uh, it differentiates from renewable energy because according to different theories and stuff, once it's gone, it's gone. There's different aspects to it, and there's whole different fields. But I'm looking for my can opener. My P51 I talked about in my last stream. So if you want, check out these live streams. Oh wait, I got two of them. See, I'm sort of scatterbrained, so it helps to have a whole bag of these. So if I misplace one, I grab another one, and now I have two. Anyway, so watch my other live streams. You know, I make sure that I have something good to say, and I'm not going to waste your time. But it might be helpful to just turn on a live stream and then do your laundry. Fold your clothes. Like, I mean, if I get really hard up, I'll start folding my own clothes as I chat here. So I'm gonna have some salmon first. So renewable energy, it's coming. Opening the salmon now. It's coming back. And it's once again, once again we have heat. Once again we have light. Once again we have electric capability. Once again we have kinetic function, which means motion. And that's to differentiate from fossil fuel, where it's one and done. Once you burn up that kerosene, you'd have to either get some more kerosene or you're out of luck. So renewable energy, from a human-centered understanding, is energy just like, well, look at the sun. don't look at the sun. Figuratively, understand the sun from our perspective here on the planet Earth, terra firma. It's pretty reliable. Every day it shows up, and then every evening it goes away. So you might even call the sun a form of renewable energy. You know, parts of the year we receive more of its energy, parts of the year we don't, but it resets every year and we can depend on it. They say every form of energy on planet Earth comes from the sun, with the exception of um, atom smashing or atom fusion type uh, radioactive forms of energy. So this fossil fuel, it's fossilized sunlight. Whether that sun hits some ancient uh, proto plants and things like that, and then they they died, and then their oils and things became uh, their carbonized oil remains became collected in pools of rotten stuff, and then that got covered with uh, dirt or whatever over the years, and then it compressed, and you know, there's all sorts of theories how oil was originally made. Some say it's still being made, like it's uh, like toe fungus for the earth or something. It keeps coming back, but um, we're talking about renewable energy. I don't know how oil is made originally, but we do all agree it takes a long time to get to where it is. Um, so other people have looked at oil like it's a free pass to develop renewable energy capability. It's like, here's some caloric. It's like a caloric speed booster. Here's extra energy so you can like finally fiddle like blindly move around the hallway towards renewable energy, and hopefully in that direction. And by the time the oil becomes too scarce to be available to uh, everyone, uh, then we'll be using renewable energy as its replacement. And then you have the people that sell oil, and they're not really keen on getting obsolete by renewable energy muscling in on their racket. So you have them um, kind of delaying the adoption of renewable energy as much as possible. So it's a game where um, we know about solar panels now. For example, we knew back in the 1960s when Bell Laboratories developed it out of the transistor research, and and like that, and over the years, the research is over the decades made them more efficient and whatnot. The real um, game changer was when um, mainland China decided to mass produce solar. panels, and it really dropped the price for the market. This was like, between 5 and 10 years ago, and they understood the problem about relying on fossil fuel, which could be cut off, versus going to renewable energy, which cannot be cut off as long as the sun shines. So it became a national prerogative for them, and through their maneuvering and their technology and their wherewithal, they got the price down. And I've benefited from that. And a lot of people were, and then they put that stinking solar embargo tax on import, and that's where we have the inhibitions or prohibitions against renewable energy by the folks that want it to limit it as much as possible, because um, they're unable to profit by something that's coming in renewably, like sunlight. How can you sell sunlight? It's not feasibly done. I remember there was a Simpsons episode where Mr. Burns had a big old shade, like an umbrella shade, but it would cover Springfield, and put it in the darkness. It was like this huge umbrella looking thing or something like that. I forget. And then he would sell electricity to the town because they would need light, and he shut off the natural source, and now he could sell electricity at a profit. So that's a parody of roughly what's going on. Now, as for me, um, I like variety with uh, uh, variety of sources of energy. I am not either or. I'm both. I want to use fossil fuel. I want to use renewable energy as a synergy. They don't have to directly compete against one another. There's some things that are better renewable, and there's some things that are better with fossil fuel. So there's just too many things that there's this false dichotomy where you have to choose a side, when really you can benefit from both. Um, so I look at fossil fuel like uh, a very valuable resource. A lot of synthetic oils, plastics, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and stuff are reliant on oil. And to burn it is like one of the lowest. Um, it's to look at it like this. Would you have, if you had a museum piece, like a carved wood furniture, like a dining set, beautifully ornately carved, beautiful, but then just decide to burn it for its heat value? That's roughly what we're doing with our oil, our petroleum, our fossil fuel. Instead of creating some very useful items out of it, we're just burning it. I mean, it provides a use for it and all, but it could be economically, that oil is worth way more as a um, pharmaceutical or some sort of a chemical process, or versus just burning it. The value of that ornate furniture, wood furniture, would be in its artistic and utilitarian function, uh, versus just using it once to burn it, as that function. So you can make things out of petroleum, out of fossil fuel. You can make things like, I don't know, just look around, like um, like this headlamp. Like it's plastic, and I can reuse it, and I can put, which I put some rechargeable alkaline batteries in there, and I charge those up with my solar system. And so the plastic here, it's not just one and done. The function, it's a structural function here, and it'll be used again and again and again. So instead of using the oil to be burnt once as a fuel, it's been used as a structural component of a piece of technology, and it can be used again and again and again. There's a lot of plastics that degrade when exposed to sunlight. I've noticed that. There's a lot of plastics that degrade as a function of time. And so if you want something to last, don't make it out of plastic. I don't know if there's such a thing as a plastic meant to last as 1,000 years. I don't think that's. I think there's something wrong with it to where it breaks down. I'm not the end all be all know all. There probably is a plastic that lasts that long. I'm just not aware of it. It's not economical to make it. So renewable energy. I was hoping someone would type stuff in the chat and I could bounce off of that. I'm just winging it. Just being a chatterbox here. But I think what I have to do is consistently go on live stream, and then eventually people will be interested. I'm just doing it at random right now, seeing what times I have. Like when I go back to my regular employment, I probably won't have as much time or energy, but I'm still going to force myself to try to do this. But I can judge after a few weeks go by whether it's worth it. So, accessibility wise, renewable energy from a standpoint of functional utilitarian accessibility, you have solar panels which charge batteries, and you use from the battery you can use electricity. There's this group that's doing, they call it direct drive, where they run things directly off of the solar panels. There's a way to do that, but once the sun goes goes behind the earth, from our perspective, to light the other side of the earth, direct drive is done. So, but typically you use solar panels to charge batteries, and then use the battery power to do your electrically associated work. Solar panels are still pretty accessible. With the current events, I almost wonder if they'll dry up somewhat, or the prices will increase. But one of these days, I want to illustrate the value of a solar panel, your typical solar panel. If I, for example, have a hand crank generator and I'm generating on it, I can probably put out 20 watts, 30 watts, something like that. And if I'm sitting there cranking on it, it's great. I can do that, but it totally prohibits me from doing anything else because I'm totally occupied. There's pedal generators where you can ride it like a bike, and same idea. It's supposed to be easier on your body to do that, but how long can you sustain that? 20 or 30 watts. Um, with a solar panel, even the smallest solar panels, most of them will put about 20 or 30 watts at the very minimum, and a lot of them now they put out quite a bit more. That's relative. What I'm saying though is sticking that solar panel, and you gotta adjust it like it's a radio antenna and getting the signal. Except instead of a radio signal, it's tuning into those photons, getting them from the sun, and you get tuned in there, and you start receiving the reaction. You can just have a solar panel sitting there doing the same amount of work as a person uh, doing a crank generator, and now the person is free to do other occupations, yet you're getting the same amount of energy. But prior, you'd have to have someone, you know, sit there and crank on that generator, or you'd have an animal hooked up to one. There, I remember seeing some diagrams of like having animals hooked up to like a wheel or something, and they would run around the wheel. They would move, and it would generate power. Some kind of idea or something. Um, so it frees up the people to do other things with their bodies other than generating electricity directly. Uh, the other thing with solar panels is there's no moving parts. Everything that moves uh, breaks, wears out and breaks. This spoon, there's no moving parts. There's nothing to break. This spoon can be around 1,000 years from now, especially it being stainless steel, still functional. This P51 can opener, it has a moving part, that little thing to open the can. Eventually, that will break because it's a moving part. Even though it'll take a long time. Well, a solar panel, there's no moving parts. Look at it like a big uh, wafer of rock, like silica, silica. It's basically a rock that like like a like a rock you would find on the ground, except it's been doped and specially made and formed and cut to do a function. But the thing that kills solar panels is being zapped by electricity, frying the internals. The seal's going bad on the solar panel to where there's water ingress, and then the water corrodes the connecting. A lot of times they use silver soldering and things like that to connect the solar cells. It'll corrode that, and then it'll fail. Or breaking, impact, looks like hailstones and things, or a hurricane or something, and fling the paddle against a hard object and break it. Other than that, they're known to last years and years, decades, at very, very close to their original rated output. There's different materials and things, like there's a lot of experimental materials, but your basic monocrystalline and polycrystalline panels, um, they last a long time. There's other types that um, maybe they don't, like your flexible or your thin film. Those are known to fail They're not rocks. There's no such thing as a flexible rock. Well, there might be. Maybe I don't know about it, but in general, there isn't. So if it flexes, it's not a rock. So, or maybe it is. I just don't know about it. Can you imagine a rock that was flexible, like it was made out of rubber in a natural state? Interesting. Anyway, so the other factor is wind power. The wind is a function of the sun. As the sun heats up the atmosphere of the Earth, it causes the ambient air, which is composed of different elements, but it causes it to heat up. And so there's elements of the air that expand. And as those expand, it causes a force, which so another source of information told me it's not the wind blowing, it's the wind sucking. That's what you're experiencing. It's not, the wind isn't blowing, it's sucking. So as I imagine an air pocket for our purposes, it gets heated up and it rises, which causing a low pressure, because now you have the rise, like, causes pressure to come in to fill the gap, to fill the vacuum. And that right here, that's you're not feeling the wind blowing, you're feeling the wind sucking. So it's all elements from, once again, the sun. And if you're able to put a rotor or propeller or some other device to catch the wind movement and convert that into a mechanical function, which turns an alternating current alternator or a direct current generator or some variation of that, producing electricity, which, if it's direct current, you can send it to a charge controller. If it's alternating current, you can send it to a rectifier to rectify it to direct current, which goes to a charge controller. Or maybe you don't even have the charge controller. Maybe you're doing that some other function, like those direct DC people. Or, like, for example, you could run it directly into a resistor of some sort and heat water with it, or heat ambient air without even charging any batteries or things like that. So ideally, you would have a solar panel, one or more, and ideally you'd have a wind generator, one or more, hooked into the same battery charging system. And when the sun isn't shining, maybe the wind's blowing, charging your system. And when the wind isn't blowing, perhaps the sun is shining. Now, there's other charging system. There's other renewable energies too. One I'm experimenting with, as soon as I find that I lost the power cord for it. Basically, it's a thermoelectric a thermal generator. It takes heat from like a rocket stove or a wood stove, and you get a very small DC current from the reaction. I also have another thermal generator which uses the heat from propane. It's been sitting up there, actually. It's up there in the corner. I had a helpful, well-placed helper get me the manual for it. I need to do a video on that as I become more active on YouTube here or other platforms, if perhaps in the future. I need to get that going. So I guess my vocation for this would be to promote renewable energy. remote. Promote renewable energy, understand, utilize, conserve, and appreciate fossil fuel, but provide accessibility to people and open awareness. Um, there's hydroelectric where you can dam up water or access a waterfall or something like that, where the kinetic motion of the water or the pent up uh, gravity induced force of a higher entity moving down to a lower state, following the gravity well, whether it's in a DAM or some other, high point to a low point, and accessing that kinetic energy to turn, a generator, an alternator. There's that, but that's more rarefied because most people don't have running water in an accessible point where they can use it. Um, but once again, it's the sunlight. The sun helps evaporate water where it collects in the upper atmosphere or the lower atmosphere, and then it condensates, condenses, and then it falls down as raindrops, falls down on the earth, and it collects at some point, whether it's a bowl-shaped lake or something like that, and then humans come around and they access that kinetic energy because that water continuously wants to fall um, towards the Earth's gravity well, and so the water wants to fall, and then there's a dam, so the water has to go through the dam to follow its the law of gravity from a high point to a low point. It's got to go through the dam, and then humans have put mechanisms in there, like for small scale. There's something called a Pelton wheel you can check out, but the large hydroelectric dam projects that have turbines and things like that. So as that motion goes down, following the gravity, the water, they can open and close that. Uh, that energy source is tapped. The kinetic motion is converted into electricity. But for most people, they don't have a way of accessing that. That's more rarefied. I would say for most people, they're gonna have wind. They're gonna have solar. Um, we're talking outside of cities. Cities, you only have the rooftops to access that sort of thing, not down in the valleys between the buildings that I know of, anyway. Um, Same thing with burning, say, like wood on a wood stove to use a thermal generator, which is only a small amount of wattage. But even that small amount is still the equivalent of a person sitting there on a crank generator, a crank alternator going instead of having some person like waste their talent doing that, underutilize their talent. They could be doing other important things, and they have a electric generator doing the thing, and it's reliable, and it frees up the humanity to do things. Um, so those are three very accessible forms. Um, you can also use biogas and stuff to heat up the thermoelectric generator. Um, there's another generator that's not thermoelectric. It's called a Stirling engine. That instead of internal combustion, which is usually, well, it's focused on fossil fuels. There are exceptions. For example, you can run combustion engines off of different different gases and things like that. Like I've seen wood gas. Um, I've seen uh, methanol. I've read books at least. Um, there's some other ones too where you can run a internal combustion engine off of that. But a Stirling is external combustion. So basically, you heat it up externally through some means, whether it's wood gas or wood stove, direct wood heat, or it's uh, human, or it's some kind of other uh, geogas or something like that. Anyway, and you should, if you don't know about Stirling engines, they're interesting. They even have solar Stirlings where there'll be a parabolic dish or something that'll focus um, the sunlight onto the Stirling engine and activate it. It's basically a heat engine, but it turns the heat pressure, moving a piston usually, into kinetic energy, which moves your generator or alternator. I have a few experimental ones. I'd like to show them off. Stay tuned. Let's see. There's also alternate fuels such as hydrogen. Hydrogen is accessible to most people if they use a device called a Hoffman apparatus, which I have one. I need to crack it open and get huffing the Hoffman. Hoffman device apparatus will crack H2O into 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen atom using a DC DC injection. I guess it tears the atoms apart. A DC injection into a alkaline electrolyte. I've seen people say baking soda and distilled water. I've seen people say potassium hydroxide and distilled water. So I'm going to be looking at that. But you dispose of the oxygen and save the hydrogen, and then you run your hydrogen fuel cell off of that. That's one way. Some people combine the oxygen and hydrogen, make something called HHO gas, where it even cut things. It's like a torch. It's like it's gas for a torch, like a cutting torch, or welding torch or something like that. But it's off HHO gas. This is another thing. So there's different gradients, but the easiest thing for most people is solar. Okay, that's the easiest. No moving parts. You go to a wind generator of some type, like a Sibelius or a typical pinwheel type or a rotor type. There's moving parts. You're going to have failure points. So ideally, easiest and simplest, accessibility-wise, solar is where it's at. Solar panels. And like I said, there's different variations of solar panels, some better than others. But basic monocrystalline and polycrystalline are the most reliable, and then it goes down from there. And there's probably going to be other ones developed on top of those, which just stay on top of the developments. So there's other things. I mean, you can have atomic piles and things like that use the decaying atoms to heat water, and but for basic civilian use and things like that, that's going to be really tough to do that on an individual basis. So there's different gradients. Solar being the easiest for everyone. Wind being a little bit harder, but still accessible with the problems of moving parts. So it becomes more and more rarefied and harder to get into as you move up the scale. There's probably some technologies and things, like a lot of people play with magnets. There's probably a way to arrange those magnets in a certain form to tap into that that motive force of magnetism. Something really interesting I saw too. It's called piezoelectricity. It's basically if like it's piezo, like there's these piezo buzzers or something. I'm not that well understood on this just yet, but uh, I know it's like there's these piezo buzzers where you send a voltage through it and it goes, you know, it's like the cheapest buzzer crap you could ever think of. But piezoelectricity is it's when there's a weight or a force or a crushing, not crushing, but oppressive force onto this piezo crystal. It craps out an electric charge. So this ingenious thing, it was basically a pillar with piezo uh, electric charge emitting base, and the pillar used the idea of a how do you say it, like a lever, like the mechanical advantage of a lever. The pillar was a lever, and so it was really easy from the top of it to push it, and it would do its pillar rotation on the piezo deals. But because it was incredibly easy to push it from the top using mechanical force, and because it was balanced, it would kind of do a rotary crusher thing, you know, enough to get these piezos to squirt out their electrical charge. But um, how it was moved from the top, I don't remember whether it was like a electromagnet pushing it or it was some balance or some other thing. It was pretty interesting though. I forget what it was called. Maybe you can look it up. Maybe you want. I noticed there's not a lot of people. A lot of people are passive. They just want to passively learn. They don't want to really interact. And so, and maybe they can't. Like different, like especially here on. Initially, I'm recording this on YouTube. Sometimes you can't access the ability to type in anything or whatever on your platform. Maybe it's a smart TV or something. There's no keyboard. There's just no other choice but to passively learn. So, but that using a pillar with piezoelectrics at the bottom of it and that funky motion, that's up to difficulty scale. So at the base of that is solar. So renewable energy for most people should be solar. And then maybe a gradient up for there would be maybe a hand electric hand generator or something like that, maybe a wind generator and stuff like that, and moving on because it gets more and more complicated, more and more expensive, and more points of failure. So I think renewable energy for most people would be would be solar, and investigating that, and I certainly have, and it's a matter of scale. The more solar panels you have, the more voltage and amps you can kick out and collect, and the more deviance from the norm you can tolerate to power your basic functions. There's actually, believe it or not, I had a hint of this, but Heinlein, the science fiction author, he wrote a story. I forget what it was called, but he anticipated solar panels. The story had some really interesting technology in it, having to do with crystals and a bunch of other stuff that I need to review again. But the gist of the story is there was this hot dame scientist that was looking to hook up with this other scientist, and it was really corny. And but anyway, to save the father's factory, they needed some power, and then they figured out how to do it, developing it. made basically a way to power the factory with solar, um, or was it, or some kind of hooked together series deal, charge batteries and run the factory. It's a pretty interesting sci-fi concept. It was before it was actually practical. It makes me wonder if he was privy to things that um, and he was hinting at it. Or sometimes sci-fi authors they'll be able to predict future developments based on core concepts. And I wrote a sci-fi book, and I'm trying to show the world concepts that they can, adapt. I think I sold one copy. It's up on Amazon. Um, if you're smart, you'll be able to find it. But yeah, so sci-fi is a way of opening the conceptual um, possibilities. So never discount science fiction or fantasy or other genres, because imagination is 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 the function of the mind, which comes first, and then the more grounded functions that are able to visualize whatever that fantasy is, or science fiction is. They're able to make that into reality using known sciences and processes, or some other way. Maybe it's imagination, that some artistic motif or whatever. They're able to go from an imaginary um, existence to a reality existence using the human mind as a conduit. And so there are a lot of people that are imaginative. There are a lot of people that aren't imaginative, but they're technical. So you link the two together, and then you can get kind of like an assembly line from imagination to production. I mean, obviously there's more intricacies involved, but you just do an assembly line. Well, I don't even. Well, yeah, it is an assembly. Assembling imaginative things into real world utilitarian concepts. I mean, where do you think a lot of our ideas and stuff come from? A lot of it is dreams, or it's influence, um, or it's just the neurons associating things in new ways. Um, for example, or you could have influencers that are depending on how you look. You're depending on how you view your reality. It could be reality based influences, or para reality based influences. I'll leave it at that. Um, but even for me, like I have a talent of taking disparate concepts and linking them together in new ways. Uh, Complicated machines are just an assemblage of less complicated machines. Um, and in the same way, you can take disassociation and put it into association, and that's the same as making a complicated or more complicated system out of smaller subsystems. And so having that ability is very uh, efficacious. There, where did I hear that word from? There's this old movie, Terry Gilliam movie called um, I think The Adventures of Baron von Munchausen or something. I can't say it. It's something along those lines. Terry Gilliam, the director of it, but the Baron was like, a little snuff is most something efficacious, you know, or something like that. I don't know. My parents were telling me one day something about a snuff box. Like, there's some kind of indentation on the on the not the palm of the hand, but the other side, whatever this is called, the back of the hand. But there's some kind of indentation where you would put your little snuff on it and then whiff it up. But I don't know if that was what I was thinking of. Anyway, that's what I'm talking about, association. Like a fantasy movie, you learn a new language term and then associating that into your everyday life and things like that. So never, ever um, discount the ability of science fiction and fantasy and other genres, classical art, literature, and things like that to create new connections in your life and other people's life through your actions. Never discount that. Um, it's basically recipes, undiscovered recipes. So anyway, we're almost at an hour here. I've had nobody like chatting in the little chat box. Like I'll do a little test. See, that's why I would do that, and then hopefully other people would do that. They would, write in there some kind of comment like, "Oh man, you need to do your laundry. You need to fold your laundry." I mean, it was like that last time. Yeah, it is. For people like me, we think of ways to get out of the drudgery of cranking that hand crank. We want to use a solar panel to generate that. And if there was a way to get out of folding laundry, we'd probably incorporate that as well. We're doing other things. I mean, it's not to say that we're better than anyone. It's just that we want to utilize our talents in other ways. But at any rate, well, we got 2 viewers. Woo! Hey, people, thank you for viewing. I don't know if you're viewing, you might be passively listening. I know I do that quite a bit. You know what else I do? To maximize my time, I'll get a video going and I'll double the speed. There's a way to adjust it usually where you can have the playback double and you get the information twice as fast and take half as long. Um, that's a little pro tip for you. If you've got a lot of YouTube stuff to review, double the speed. See if you can process what's going on. And a lot of times, you don't even have to watch the video. You can just listen to it and get the. And if there's something that sparks your interest, you can go back and review it. Another little pro tip is I got the YouTube Premium. I think it's like $8 a month, and I never have to play with those crazy ads and things like that. I just use that, and I'm able to have undistracted information portal. I've told a lot of people this, and I still believe it. YouTube is a great platform to learn things. You can just type about anything and you could practically think of, and YouTube will usually have some kind of information on it. It's an amazing learning device, and so I encourage that. I'm one of those self-taught people. I mean, I have used tutors and instructors and professors and stuff as well along the typical, path, but I've also gone on my own paths and learned and self-taught my skill sets and stuff. And skills are perennial, and skills are ephemeral, where they don't last. Uh, and then skills are annual, where they don't last. So anyway, I think I'm going to conclude this live stream. I want to keep it around an hour. Um, I've got a lot of things to do, and we had a grand total of 2 viewers. That's just great, or 2 people that tuned in. Could be a bot or something because I don't see any interaction, or maybe my 10-year-old computer is completely hosed and I'm not able to. So it's still something to perceive. I haven't formed an opinion on it yet. So anyway, we're just about at that hour point. The discussion was basically renewable energy, some concepts, some ways to visualize it, and at that point, I think we should cut it off. So I'm gonna save all my live streams. There's this guy I was a real fan of, and he won't save his live streams. I'm not gonna be that guy. I'm gonna save my live streams because not everybody can watch a live stream. They have other things. They have their own lives and things, and it's incredibly frustrating to have a lot of talent and you just don't save it. What is that? That's crazy sauce, especially with all the capability we have now. Where in the past it was a real bugbear to record yourself either visually or audio, and now it's easy. So why not take advantage of it? Maybe this video is a benefit to you in the future, far future, where I'm long gone. In that case, hello. Glad I could help. So I'm gonna cut this off now. So anyway, be well. Try to think ahead, and remember, you can have all the wonderful thoughts and things and like that, but you have to take care of your chassis. You know, you have to feed yourself, you have to bathe yourself, you have to have medicine accessibility. So don't forget, you can have your head in the clouds, but don't forget where your feet are have to be in the earth. You have to be remain grounded. You have to take care of your core functions. It's that it's that what am I thinking about? There's that pyramid of needs and wants. Oh, I can't think of the dude's name. Um, hierarchy of need. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Check that out. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have your base functions, and then as each level is satisfied, you're able to proceed to the next level. It's very true. And so don't forget your core functions and things like that. Like remember, you have to take care of your systems. Okay, so other than that, we'll cut this off. Be well, stay well, and learn stuff. Bye bye for now.